Welcome. I got a request for a behind the scenes on how I make my graphics. So if you want to make graphics, like, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, right? This is kind of my process for that. I am in the middle of editing the intro for episode 20 of the Transportation Only Iron Man. I've already noted out some sections, and generally speaking, for my graphics, normally I will already have the audio done and figured out, whatever it is I want to do. If there's clips along with it, sometimes there are. Coming into this section here, you can see like I've got some audio work that I want to incorporate, which doesn't have any clips, so this is going to get some of those graphics, or, you know, after the fact, some like re-recorded B-roll type of stuff. I'll also have some sections here that I still need to work through that are actual clips, and I may end up adding graphics over the top of it. So this is kind of where I start, and what I will do is I will listen through this and I will kind of notate what it is that I want to do. So I'll end up with a stack, something like, looking at this section over here. And let me actually hide my camera just so you can see a little bit more. So you can see up here, I've got the video window. I use Premiere Pro. You don't have to. It's the same process either way, but the technical bits will be a little bit different. But I will listen through to a section and we can just hear this real quick. So many areas of the game do not have a teleport or other transportation method to it. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm listening to these sections and I'm thinking, what is it that I want to do over the top of these? Sometimes it'll be as simple as I'm just talking to the camera, and sometimes I'll have clips where I'm actually talking to the camera. Sometimes I won't and I have to come back in after the fact and grab them. And sometimes it'll be something a little bit more interesting. Some of them can definitely be much more complex. So something like this section here can be a little bit more complex, where I need to, maybe I'm like, okay, well, I figure out what the sort of baseline is. That's the B-roll that's going to be in kind of this main timeline here. And then I'll figure out what it is that I'm trying to talk about on top of it. This one in particular, I'm describing how clue juggling works. And so I don't always have a great idea of what that's going to look like until I'm actually in the fact building out the graphics. But going back to the segment I showed here, this is the section that we just listened to. So from my notes, what I decided I want to do is I want to have some sort of like slow flyover of an area that I know that I can't get, because I'm talking about like, there's some landlocked chunks. I'm just not going to be able to unlock them ever. So I want to have some sort of base B-roll that applies to that. And then as I'm talking about the things, I'm going to have them kind of pop up into the screen. Now, I've actually already gone and captured a bunch of B-roll shots. If it wants to load, there it goes. So now I just need to find the section that I did. If you want to learn about the ways that I capture B-roll in the game, let me know. I can make a dedicated video to that as well. But I think this section should do pretty well for us. Grab it about here where it starts to get some movement in the clip, and we're not going to need a ton of it. It looks like we probably need about 8 seconds, but that's fine. We can drag in more than we need, and then we can trim it later. So now we've got that base B-roll. I just drag it down. I just straight up replace my notes. They're always preserved for me in my other timeline here, the clip dumping ground, where I do kind of like the base work of just setting up what it is that I want for a given episode. That's this section over here, slow flyover of areas I can never open up that are grayed out. Cool. So if I'm ever curious what I was working on, I can always go back there. You also probably noticed that I changed the color of these, and that's just to help distinguish it, because as I bring stuff in, it becomes purple. It's just the default color that's set up in here. So let's see. Right here, I am saying teleport, so we want to pop something in. Now, I actually keep some commonly used sound effects kind of here in a different sequence. Same with some graphics as well. I think we're probably going to end up wanting a red X, which I have saved, and the pop sound, which you've probably heard in the videos. Zoom on in and move these over. So we're probably going to want to have 2 of these. I'll make a copy of this just so they're kind of sitting out on the side, then we'll circle back and do this in a minute. But game do not have a teleport. Do not have a teleport or other. Hear that little pop sound? All right, so that is going to be helpful for us. It's always good where you can put sound effects. Typically they're helpful. It just makes things feel a little bit more like integrated, if you will. The pop sound effect is a really easy one that I like to use a lot. Also the whip sound as well. You'll hear that a lot in the videos too, for flying things off the screen. I actually keep a lot more sound effects than just that. I have a template resource folder that goes along with every single project. So I've got all of these different sound effects available to me that I've kind of found over time. Some of them I use more than others. The ones that I really use a lot of are the ones that are hanging out here in this other sequence. So now we need a teleport icon, and probably the home teleport icon will work pretty well. So typically what I'll do is I'll just go over to the wiki to grab icons. Teleports are ones that are normally a little bit on the small side. So we'll see how this looks if I just pull it in straight up as is. We are quite spoiled as a game because we really get a lot of resources available to us through the wiki. So I'm on the wiki all the time, just grabbing random little like PNGs of NPCs or items in the game or what have you. Whatever I need, it tends to be on here. So now that I've got that downloaded, I'll just move it over into the project folder, and then we've got it in here. So we will drag this in, make it the same length. We'll go ahead and overwrite that note, and you can see, maybe, it's super small on there. The in-game icons for a lot of this stuff is really small. If we need to scale it up, we can. Both in here, but this can be a little bit pixely. I mean, you'll notice if I get it like really big, it's not too terrible for these teleport icons, so we'll probably leave it as is. But some of the in-game icons, when they scale up like this, when they're super detailed, they can start looking pretty blurry. And actually, I mean, like the larger I make this, the more it's going to be noticeable. You can kind of see here with it blown up like this, it becomes much more noticeable. It's just a bit blurry. You know, maybe we should scale it up, actually. Scaling things up is actually pretty easy for RuneScape because it's all pixely art. So we'll go ahead and open this up here. We'll see if Photoshop wants to play nice today. It does not always. So I may have to do something a little bit interesting to try and get it to scale up properly. But if we come in here for the image size, and again, you don't have to use Photoshop. If you have something similar, it's fine. A lot of tools and AI have ability to scale things up. You just want to be mindful about what the setting is. Something like nearest neighbor, hard edges is great for pixel art, which a lot of RuneScape is. So we just want to make this bigger so it's a little bit less blurry. Maybe we'll like 10x it. And you can see the little preview here. It looks very clean. We'll see if it wants to keep that. It's supposed to. Sometimes though, Photoshop decides not to use the sample setting that I give it. Oh, good. Well, it played nice today. So that one's fine. We can actually just save it to the other image. That should be all right. And then it'll update in here. We may have to... Ooh. Oh my God, look at that. It did. There it goes. Now we don't need this to be scaled quite so hard. We'll fix that one up. There you go. And now you can see it's a lot better. All right, so that seems pretty good. We're going to move our red X over here, and we're just going to kind of size it up on top of it. Since what we're saying is some chunks don't have a teleport, I think it makes sense to me to have a red X over the top of it. And actually, this is a pretty good size already, so nice job, me. The other thing I like to add when we're doing elements over the top would be a drop shadow. I've got a couple different sizes because, again, sometimes I'm using those small icons, so small stuff tends to have slightly different shadows than larger stuff, and text also functions a little bit differently. So this is all stuff as you kind of like work through in your own process. You can kind of save different things that you like to use a lot. So I've got my own little folder here. Spoiler, my name's not Jack if you didn't see it up at the top before. So got a nice little drop shadow on there. Just kind of helps it stand out against the background. And then the other thing that we're going to need is the transportation symbol, which I think I actually have one saved. Arrows, check symbols, maybe? Nah, it's probably other game icons, I bet. Transport icon, that's probably what we're needing there. So we're good on that one since I've already got it, saved it. It's one that I tend to reference every once in a while, though. On the gray background, this looks a little bit gross. We can maybe up some of the colors on this a little bit just to kind of give it a little more pop. We'll also do the same thing where we give it a drop shadow as well, but that way you can kind of tell right now it already looks just a lot brighter, a lot better for being on this gray background. Drop shadow standard should do the trick for us. And do I like this size? It kind of takes up a lot of space, doesn't it? Maybe what we'll do is we'll scale this one down a little, just so we can see a little bit of the background. Sometimes I'll blur the background. I don't know that we necessarily need to here. We'll play it back one more time once I'm done kind of getting the elements and just see if I feel like there's a need for it to be a blurred background. Got that one, and let's kind of match the size. That's probably close enough. And then we'll just do the same thing. Actually, you know, I think we'll copy this red X over here since we just resized it a little bit. Get rid of that one. And then we can just come over here and shift it right on over so they're nice and in line. Okay, let's give that one another watch. So many areas of the game do not have a teleport or other transportation method to it, meaning I will just never unlock that area. So what this Now, I guess as I'm watching through this, I don't think that we necessarily need the blur, but this is kind of a long section right here that we're just staying on with not a lot happening. Do not have a teleport or other transportation method to it, meaning I will just never unlock that area. So I actually think what we can do instead, I'm going to change it up with the red X, and we're going to have one that is larger, just kind of fly in right here. Oh boy, we are going to have to make this red X quite large. So I'm going to grab the little scaling icon here, just so we're scaling off the center, and we are just going to like see how large we can get this. That might actually be the cap, 4,000%. I think so. So I think what we're going to want to do, we can kind of have this fly down from above. So it's fine if it's going to start here. And then we'll just want to go out a little ways and kind of find what sizing we really want here. And I think we want it to be pretty large, probably around here. Now, I think if we're going to do this, maybe we will do a bit of a blur. Now it feels a little bit busy with this being in the center. So I've got a little preset here, and you'll notice that I cut the clip here. I could fade it in, but since we're popping these elements in, I just want it to immediately blur. Not have a teleport or other transportation method to it, meaning I will just never unlock. All right, so now we've got our X. We'll probably want to speed that up a little bit, but for the emphasis on it, we probably want some sort of like whoosh, maybe like a whip crack sound, maybe like a slap sound, something like that when it lands. So let's take a look at some sound effects that we can play around with. So I've got a slap sound here. Whew, kind of loud. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will have lowered that on the back end of this video. How about a whip crack? Let's see how this one sounds. Never unlock that area. Oh, golly, dude, that's also super, super loud. Just never unlock that area. That one's a little bit slow, so I don't love that. I think we'll do the slap sound that I've got in here, and then let's listen to this. That's pretty quick, so I think we can do that one. We'll lower it a little bit because it is pretty loud. Same with the slap. We can mess with the volume really, as we're kind of tweaking this. Never unlock that area. Never unlock. Never unlock that. Never. Now that feels a little slow, doesn't it? So let's move this back. At the very least, we want it to line up with the sound effects. And there's actually not a lot of sound on the end of that. So we're going to move this over here. And then we're going to come down here. Let's just see how it feels like that. We may need to do something else to it. Never unlock that area. Never unlock that area. Never unlock that area. Never unlock. That's pretty good. Now, the challenge is we can actually still see the symbols, so I kind of want to do something else with these too. You may have seen I already grabbed a bunch of graphics in here, one of which is a face. I think what we want is some sad faces going on top of these icons since they're still pretty visible even with the red X. Now, since I've already got kind of like a cutesy face in here that I'm planning on using somewhere else in the project, I think what I'll do is grab kind of like a similar face that I can use and just plop on top of both of these. And again, we'll just bring that one in here and let's see how this face looks. Well, that's quite big, isn't it? We'll scale that one down a little and let's just see. It's not super easy to see, is it? I don't know if I love that. I'd probably have to customize a little bit more, and that's probably more time than it's worth for this particular segment. So the other thing that I like to do sometimes is put some eyes on these. And I believe I have a pair of eyes that I like to use that are hiding away in here. Probably going to look a little familiar if you've seen some of my videos. Now I just got to figure out placement. Is the H a nose? Kind of. But it's also got a match over here. I think we probably just end up being in the middle like this. There we go. And let's play this back one more time. So many areas of the game do not have a teleport or other transportation method to it, meaning I will just never unlock that area. That looked pretty decent, meaning I will just never unlock that area. I think we can move the eyes back slightly here, just so they pop up right as the X lands, meaning I will just never unlock that area. Never unlock that area. So, all right, I think that feels pretty good actually. So let's give it one more watch all the way through just so you can see it. So many areas of the game do not have a teleport or other transportation method to it, meaning I will just never unlock that area. So, cool. Well, I think that's good for this little section. Now, of course, this is just one example. So if you want to see more examples of how I kind of build out the graphics in these episodes, feel free, reach out, let me know. I'm happy to also explore more parts of my process. But for now, I think that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a member, and I will Catch you in the next one.